The sun was cruel that summer in Arizona, pressing down on the parched soil of a forgotten ranch owned by two poor brothers, Samuel and Elijah Carter. Their father had died years before, leaving them with nothing but a crumbling wooden house, a few sickly cattle, and a will that commanded them to keep the land no matter what. Most men would have sold it for a handful of dollars, but Samuel and Elijah were stubborn, tied to the ranch like roots to dry earth. They worked sunrise to sundown, surviving on beans, bread, and whatever they could hunt, but the nights were filled with silence so deep, it made them wonder if the world had forgotten them. One evening, while the desert sky burned red, Samuel spotted something unusual near the canyon's edge. Smoke, rising where there should have been none. He grabbed his rifle, Elijah mounted his old horse, and together they rode into the canyon with cautious eyes. What they found was a scene they would never forget. A small Apache camp raided by outlaws. Fires crackled through broken tents, and bodies lay scattered in the dust. In the chaos, Samuel noticed movement near the rocks. A young Apache girl, barely 12, clutching a broken spear, trying to fight off a man twice her size. Without hesitation, Samuel fired a warning shot, and Elijah charged with a shout that startled the outlaw, long enough for the girl to stab him in the leg and escape. The brothers pulled her away from the flames, carried her to their horse, and rode hard back to the ranch, all the while knowing they had just stepped into a storm that could cost them their lives. That night, under the flickering lantern light, the girl said her name was Nayeli. She spoke little English, but her eyes were sharp, filled with fire and grief. Her family was gone, her tribe scattered, and now she was alone in a world that wanted her erased. Samuel and Elijah were poor, but they were not cruel. They gave her food, water, and their mother's blanket to sleep in. Over the following weeks, they taught her English words, how to ride their old horse, and even how to laugh again. In return, she taught them Apache songs, how to track animals through the desert, and which plants could cure fever or poison. The brothers grew attached to her like she was their own sister. But whispers began spreading in the nearby town. Some settlers said the Carters were harboring an Apache. Others said they had betrayed their own kind. Then one evening, a group of men rode out with torches, demanding the girl be handed over. Samuel and Elijah stood their ground, rifles loaded, daring anyone to cross the fence. For hours, the standoff burned in silence. But when dawn broke, the mob turned away, swearing vengeance. The Carters knew they could not keep Nayeli safe forever. So, with heavy hearts, they rode with her deep into the mountains where a band of surviving Apache warriors lived in hiding. They gave her into the care of her people, swore they would never forget her, and rode back to their lonely ranch, believing they would never see her again. 20 years passed. 2 decades changed everything and nothing. Samuel and Elijah grew older, their hands calloused from endless work, their backs bent but unbroken. The ranch was still poor, the cattle still thin, and the roof still leaked when the rains came. But the brothers had survived. The town had grown richer, filled with merchants, saloons, and new families who had forgotten the days when the Carters were branded as traitors. Yet Samuel and Elijah remained outsiders, 2 stubborn old men living on the edge of land nobody wanted. Then came a morning unlike any other. The ground shook with the sound of hooves, and a cloud of dust rose on the horizon like a storm. Samuel grabbed his rifle, Elijah saddled his horse, and both prepared for what they thought was an attack. But as the dust cleared, what they saw stunned them into silence. An army, hundreds of Apache warriors, rode in perfect formation. At the front, astride a powerful horse, was a woman dressed in leather and silver, her long black hair flowing, a spear in her hand, and an aura of command that made even the earth tremble. She dismounted at the fence, and when she removed her headband, her eyes told the truth. It was Nayeli. The girl they had once saved was now a leader, a warrior queen, a symbol of strength and survival. Behind her, the Apache army waited in silence, their shields gleaming, their horses restless. She looked at Samuel and Elijah, her lips trembling before she spoke in perfect English. "You once saved me when I had no one. Today, I have returned so that you are never alone again." Tears welled in Elijah's eyes as Samuel dropped his rifle in disbelief. Nayeli stepped forward, embracing them both like the family she had never forgotten. She told them of her journey, the years of training, of uniting scattered bands, of becoming a leader. who could not only survive but also command respect from every tribe. She spoke of battles won, of freedom reclaimed, and of a promise she carried in her heart for two poor rancher brothers who had risked everything for a girl they did not owe. That day, the town gathered to watch as the Apache army surrounded the Carter's ranch, not in anger but in honor. Nayeli declared the Carter brothers as friends of her people, men who stood for justice when others bowed to fear. From that day, the ranch was no longer poor and forgotten. It was a place guarded by warriors, blessed with cattle and remembered in song. The brothers, who once believed the world had abandoned them, now found themselves surrounded by family larger than they could imagine. And as the sun set over the desert, Samuel whispered to Elijah, "We gave her one night of protection, and she gave us back a lifetime of honor." And the two brothers, once forgotten by the world, became legends in the story of the girl they had saved.